Towson is a trap game for Maryland football.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Maryland football has a big the last non-conference game against Towson, and I think it's a trap game for Maryland football. So we've somewhat kind of easily gone through this non-conference schedule and beat FAU and beat Northern Illinois, and we're 2-0 so far in the season. We're making progress. I think we're looking a little bit better than I thought we would. Malik Washington has started pretty well, all things considered, especially that FAU game, Northern Illinois. I said yesterday I thought he showed an it factor to stay with it, even though the offense couldn't get much going. He played well in the fourth quarter, and so this game against Towson, I think originally in my head, I was like, okay, Towson is probably going to be our easiest non-conference game. I thought Towson would be our easiest non-conference game. I thought that the game against FAU would probably be the hardest. I thought Northern Illinois would come next, and then it would be Towson for the Maryland Terrapins. But the more and more I look at Towson, the more and more I look at how they're playing so far, and yeah, they haven't really played anyone. I think this Towson game could actually be a trap game for Maryland football. And I'm telling you here first that if we don't play the right way, if we don't concentrate, we might end up winning the game. We might end up barely getting out of there. But if we want to make progress and continue to get better, we're going to have to put together a good game against Towson, because I think that this is honestly, a trap game for Maryland football that we could end up not playing as well. And I think Towson's a lot better than I actually thought they were. And so I just think if we don't put together a performance that we're proud of, a performance where we feel good about, a performance that's complete, we actually could end up being in a dogfight against Towson at home. They're not traveling that far. This isn't like one of those situations where a team travels across the country and they have to go all this way. They're right up the road at Towson, so it's not too much of a travel. They'll probably do it, stay in their own beds the night before. And I think Towson's going to come with a lot of energy. I don't know if you guys have checked out their scores. I don't know if you checked out what they're doing. And I understand Towson's not a very good football team compared to us. But I still think the fact that they're 2-0 so far with two big wins, one against Norfolk State, where they kind of crushed Norfolk State 27-7 on the road, and then they also played on the road against Morgan State and won that game by 5. I think Towson's feeling pretty good about themselves and their program right now. It's something like they have 5 straight wins, marking back to last season. I think they're going to come with a lot of energy, a lot of push, and I know that the spread is nearly 30 points in favor of Maryland football. But you can't tell me we haven't seen a story before where a team loses a game like this, or all of a sudden a team that you have no idea who they are, or a team that nobody expects to be in it, is in a complete dog fight. I think Towson is going to have a solid game plan. I think they know who they are. I think they know what they want to do well. And I think if Maryland doesn't play closer to how they did against FAU, then we could be in a real fight against Towson. I'm not saying we won't pull it out. We might still end up winning the game by 14 points or 21 points in the fourth quarter, but it could take a lot more effort than we actually want it to take. And I think it's important to sit back and realize here that This is our last non-conference game, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but I think that's important to me because when you look at it, it being our last non-conference game in this Towson game, is we don't want to kill ourselves in this game against Towson. And so when I say we might end up winning this game by 17 points and still kind of be a dogfight, I mean, we're only up 7 going into the third quarter or going into the fourth, and then all of a sudden we have a 10-point swing in the fourth quarter. We don't want that against Towson, and I think it's a big turning point in our season, this game against Towson, but they do some things well. They're 2-0 on the season, and I think more importantly, they know who they are. They know what they do. They know who they're about. They know what we do, and I think Maryland's team has a really wide range of what we can be, and there's going to be, after this, obviously, it's all Big Ten games. Anyone can beat us realistically, but there's a really wide range of what we can bring in. If we're on the lower part of the spectrum with how young our quarterback is, freshman quarterback, how young some of the guys on the defensive ball are, like we're playing 2 freshmen on the edge. We're playing Messiah Del Home is getting a lot of stops, a lot of snaps in our defense. We're playing a lot of young players. We're playing new receivers that we're still trying to figure out. Our offensive line, I'm not sure. Is our run game? Can we run the football? There's still a ton of question marks, even though we've shown that we can be pretty good this year. There's a wide range of what we can get. And that's why I'm thinking it could be a trap game for Maryland football, because if we get us on the lower end of things, if Towson gets us on a day where we're on the lower spectrum, on the lower side of things, there's totally an opportunity there for Towson to beat us, because there's one thing that we haven't done well. We haven't run the football well. And when you don't run the football well, it opens up the door for teams like Towson to stay in the game. Because even if you're scoring a lot, you can't really control the clock. You can't stop the clock. You can't wear out their defense in the same way when you can't run the football. It's harder to stay on the field. It's harder to take advantage of our talent advantage that we have over a Towson team when you can't run the football. And I think there's a recipe there for Towson to muddy it up, to make it a gritty type of game like it was against Northern Illinois. And our offense has 2 different types of games, and I don't know which one's going to show up. The 20-point performance against Northern Illinois, or is it going to be when we absolutely dominated FAU? I don't know. Malik Washington has still played pretty well the entire season. I think we're all excited about that. But which Malik Washington is going to show up? I'm not saying like he's been bad yet. It's not like there'd be games where like I'd be like Billy Edwards, what Billy Edwards we're going to get? I don't know. Malik Washington hasn't shown quite that variance. But we just don't know what this offense is going to do. We don't have solidified receivers yet. It feels like we're still trying to figure that out. I just think there's a lot going on that we're still trying to figure out, that we're still trying to get better at, that we're not just going to walk in there and end up winning this game. I just don't think that's going to work. I think we're way more talented. There's a reason we're 30-point favorites, but I do think this could be a trap game. We're heading into the fourth quarter. We might be like, come on, we're only up 10 points against this Towson team, or we're only up 7 points. Like, everyone knows we're probably going to win the game, but I just think it could tire us out. It's our last non-conference game. I think there could be some interesting storylines behind it. I think the Towson game is actually really similar to the Northern Illinois game. I think Towson's going to have the same game plan. We'll continue that conversation talking about Towson. We'll talk about that next. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more time every time you order. These players deliver when it matters most. Let's break it down. For Maryland, my player of choice is Zahir Mathis. He delivered in a big way. He had another sack, and he continues to impress despite just being a freshman. There's no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching, you know why I think he can be one of the best. And he's absolutely on a streak. And just like Zahir Mathis delivered for the Maryland Terrapins, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash treats. And you can save every Saturday you order, stack up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Feel your game day, only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. I think this Towson game is actually a very similar vibe as the Northern Illinois game. I think they're a similar type of team. When I look at Northern Illinois, when I look at how I expected them to play against us, it was really kind of accurate what I thought they would do against us, how I thought they would play against us, and things like that. When I dive into their kind of past games, I'm like, this is the same thing as Northern Illinois. And I think Northern Illinois is a little bit better than what Towson is. But look, when I look at what Towson wants to do, it's the same thing as Northern Illinois. They want to run the football a ton, want to run the football a lot. In their first game against Norfolk State, a game they won 27-7, their quarterback threw it, had 14 completions, but they handed it off 29 times between two running backs. Another kid also had 2 carries. Another kid had a carry as well, to bring them to 29, 31, 33 carries between the running backs to only 26 passes. We know Maryland's ratio is completely flopped the other way. It's completely flipped, I should say. And also their quarterback had 6 carries as well, Andrew Indoor. So I look at that game, I'm like, okay, so their quarterback completed 14 passes. They had 26 attempts, but they ran the ball way more. And then I look at their second game against Morgan State, Towson's second game, and I'm like, it's a similar type of vibe. Their quarterback only passes the ball 23 times, and it's not like the kid's inefficient. Like, he went 18-23, 186 yards, and a touchdown. And this was a game they beat Morgan State by 5, 27-22. And then they ran the ball a lot more. They had a lot of quarterback design runs. Their leading runner had 14 carries. Their backup runner had 4 carries, and their quarterback had 9 carries. So they're a team, to me, that wants to run the football. I think that's the biggest part of it. I think it's really similar. I don't think it's as extreme as Northern Illinois, but I think it's one of those things where if we get them, if we can stop the run, we win the game by 30 points. If we can stop the run, I think that's reasonable. And I think they don't have it. Like, I think there's a 0% chance they can beat us if we stop the run. I truly believe that. And some of the guys up front, Cam Rice in particular, have been playing at a pretty good level so far this year. And I'm excited because it feels like it's a lot better. I've said it. In the past, it feels like under Mike Loxley, we just haven't put together the pieces up front. It just feels like we haven't been that great up front. And this year, it feels a little bit different. It feels like we've become a little bit more elite up front, and that we've done a little bit of a better, I don't want to say elite, but we've done a little bit better job in the portal. So I think if we stop Towson's run game, they're not going to have a lot to look forward to. I think their weapons on the outside, we don't really have to worry about too much. I think the main kid that is playing pretty well for them is their leading receiver so far on this year is this kid, John Dunmore. John Dunmore is one player on their team that I do think looks explosive, looks like he's playing at a pretty high level, and he's a graduate student from Oregon State, so he was playing pretty high level football, and he's kind of their leading receiver. He has most of their receiving yards through the first couple of games. He had 6 receptions and 67 yards, and then he also had in the game before that, the first game of the season against Norfolk State, he had 5 receptions, 61 yards, and he had a touchdown in every single game, which is kind of similar to Northern Illinois in the fact that they didn't have a lot of weapons that honestly I was worried about. And that's kind of exactly what happened. Their leading receiver had 26 yards. So I think it's a similar game plan. I do think Towson's quarterback so far this year has been a little bit more efficient. But at the same time, I want us to remember that Northern Illinois is technically better on the betting odds in terms of on paper than Towson. So I don't want to act like this game against Towson is going to be like the hardest game ever, but I do think it could be really similar to the Northern Illinois game. And that's my first point of being a trap game. I think it's very similar in the fact that it could be 20-9 at the end of the game, and we're looking at it and we're like, we don't feel awesome right now heading into the rest of our schedule, or we could only be up 7 points at halftime like Northern Illinois. I think that's totally possible with this Towson team, and I think that if we can't run the football, and even if we're stopping them defensively, which we did against Northern Illinois, it's going to become probably somewhat of a dogfight. Now, yeah, there's a world where Malik Washington just takes over and plays to the level and talent that he is, and plays at a high level, plays elite, all those different things. That is entirely a possibility. But there's also a world where we just can't throw the football as well as we want. We got to remember, the kid's a freshman. We like his game, but we could stall. So I think it's really similar to this Northern Illinois game. I hope we learn from it. I think it's a really good opportunity to see if we got better, because from week 1 to week 2, it split a little bit, but that's completely normal. That happens all the time in football. I want to see if we pick ourselves back up and get back to where we are. The last non-conference game, what does it mean for the Terps? What does Maryland football need to figure out? I'll talk about a couple different things. We'll talk about that next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can just bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more than IIHS top safety pick, plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same attention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, more than the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So Maryland football's game against Towson is the last non-conference matchup, which means a couple different things. So you want to feel good about yourself after this game, because honestly, this was kind of like preseason for Maryland football. There wasn't a single game that we weren't double digits favorites in. There wasn't a single game that I was necessarily like, that might actually really be a tough game to win. Like, there are teams playing non-conference games that you're like, dang, like Michigan played Oklahoma last week. In week 1, we watched a bunch of really goods, like whether it was LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, played Texas. There's a lot of games, and there wasn't anything like that for Maryland football where it's like, oh, we're playing Mississippi State, or we're playing a team like Texas Tech, like something where it's like, oh, Maryland football could legitimately lose that, or when we would play UVA in the past. And so it's kind of a preseason feel to it, because it's like, can we really lose the game? And there was a lot of different things going on, and I think we figured out a lot of them. The number one thing heading into the Wisconsin game I wanted us to figure out was the quarterback. And I think we have that figured out. I think we know Malik's the guy. I think we know that going forward, he's the star of the rest of the season. And for as long as he's a quarterback at Maryland football, the offensive line, I think we have a pretty good idea of it heading into this last game against Towson. If there's any other small changes that need to happen, anything that needs to get better, I would like to see us improve on. But there's still some things that I think we're figuring out. And there's one thing in particular that is throwing me off still, and it's this receiving room. I don't know what to think of this receiving room. Is it elite? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it okay? Is it going to help Malik Washington this year? There's a lot of different guys getting targets, and I think we're kind of seeing who Malik likes throwing the football to, but I think I'm still trying to figure out, is this going to be receiver by committee? Are we going to throw it to different players? Like, kind of what's the deal here with Maryland football playing different guys, different receivers getting receptions? I think we're all still trying to figure that out because in the two games, it's just been a high variance of players. Against Northern Illinois, there was a lot of different guys that got catches, whether it was Shalik Knotts or Jaleel Farouk or Caleb Wagg, Octavian Smith. And then against FAU is a similar thing, even more so against FAU when it was a ton of guys catching passes. Shalik Knotts, Jaleel, Caleb, Octavian, Ryan Manning caught a pass. There's just a lot of different kind of players that are playing and that are getting time at the receiving room. And I'm like, are we going to figure that game out? And I think this game against Towson is a good chance to see who the guys are going to be, because we all thought Jaleel Farouk and Octavian Smith are kind of miles ahead of everyone, but the gap doesn't look that big right now. And Octavian Smith hasn't been one of our best couple of receivers. I think Jaleel Farouk, you could argue, has been our best. I think you would say Dorian Fleming's been our best. But I'm going to exclude the tight end position right now. I think you could argue Jaleel Farouk's been the best. I think it's an argument. But I think you could also argue Shalik Knotts, who I honestly thought fell off a cliff because I didn't hear a single peep of his name, and a guy that I thought had a chance to make a real jump but nobody was talking about. And then even a guy like Caleb Webb is making plays. And so he hasn't had an argument to be one of our better guys. And I think this game against Towson being our last non-conference game, I don't want to go into the Wisconsin game being like, we don't really know in the receiving room. Different guys could catch the ball because I just don't love how that feels still. But I think there's some things that need to be smoothed out because this is the last game. Like I said, we don't want to mess around with this game against Towson. We don't all of a sudden want to be in a dogfight against Towson because if you guys look at Wisconsin's schedule, Wisconsin plays Alabama. So there's an advantage to that. Coming off the Alabama game, you could look at it two ways. You could look at it as, oh, they just played Alabama. They're going to be used to a high level of play. Even if you don't think Alabama's that good this year, I think most people would agree Alabama's probably better than us. They should be ready to play Maryland. How I look at it, though, is the other way around. You play Alabama, a team like Wisconsin, you're going to be beat up. You're going to be hurt. Billy Edwards is, I think, out against Alabama. I saw some report. He's not a quarterback anymore, so I'm less worried about it. But they play Alabama. So I don't want to have to play a full game where we're 30-point favorites against Towson, and all of a sudden we're tired. We don't have the same energy. We don't have the same types of injuries that we would have if we only played a half of the game, or Malik Washington only has to play three quarters, or our starters don't have to play nearly as long as we've seen them have to play against Northern Illinois. I think that could be an advantage because Wisconsin could be coming off the game being like, dang, we're really beat up. And so to me, I think it's really important that this last non-conference game, we don't mess around like we did against Northern Illinois. We learned, we got our adversity. Now it's time to blow somebody out like we did against FAU. Not to mess around with this Towson team. Let Malik Washington go to work and see where the chips fall. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.